The La Cantuta massacre, in which a university professor and 9 students from Lima's La Cantuta University were abducted by a military death squad and disappeared, took place in Peru on 18 July 1992 during the presidency of Alberto Fujimori. The incident occurred 2 days after the Shining Paths Tarata bombing left over 40 dead in Lima province. The incident was among the crimes noted in the conviction of Fujimori, on April 7, 2009, on charges of human rights abuses. Context: the Enrique Guzman y Avail National Education University was founded as a teacher training college in 1822, granted its university charter in 1965, closed down by the military government in 1977, and reopened in 1980. Because of its remote location, far away from the center of Lima, the fact that most of its students hailed from the impoverished interior of the country, and that most of them intended to enter the highly politicized teaching profession, La Cantuta gained a reputation as hotbed of radical politics as early as the late 1950s and early 1960s. It was a series of student-led protest actions on the campus, including the blocking of the railway link linking Lima with the interior of the country, that led to the suspension of its activities in 1977. With the return of democratic rule in 1980, President Belaunde reopened the university. The radical elements among the students and lecturers were quick to return, and by the mid-1980s the country's 2 main insurgent groups, Shining Path and the Tupac Amaru Revolutionary Movement, had a strong presence on campus. By the early 1990s, due to a strategic withdrawal by MRTA and the fragmentation of the other left-wing groups on campus, legal and illegal alike, Sendero Luminoso had the upper hand. This was in spite of operations such as that of 13 February 1987, when 4,000 police officers conducted nighttime raids at the dormitories of 3 state universities, 20 April 1989, when a joint force of police and army descended on La Cantuta University and San Marcos National University and arrested over 500 students on charges of subversion, or the 22nd of May 1991, when, in response to a hostage crisis and rumors of an explosive device squirreled away on campus, Fujimori sent the army in to restore order at La Cantuta. Graffiti alluding to Sendero Luminoso and its leader, Abimael Guzman, were painted over with patriotic slogans. Students went about their business only after passing checkpoints and under close supervision from the armed forces, and the campus remained under military control for several years. Abduction of July 1992. In the pre-dawn hours of 18 July 1992, 2 days after the Tarata bombing, members of the Army Intelligence Service and the Army Directorate of Intelligence, most of whom were attached to the recently established Grupo Colina death squad, burst into the residences of the Enrique Guzman y Avail National University. Once inside, the troops forced all the students to leave their rooms and lie belly down on the floor. 9 students believed to be linked to the Tarata bombing: Bertila Lozano Torres, Dora Royuk Fierro, Luis Enrique Ortiz Pereira, Armando Richard Amaro Condor, Robert Edgar Teodoro Espinoza, Heraclides Pablo Meza, Felipe Flores Chapana, Marcelino Rosales Cardenas, and Juan Gabriel Marinos Figueroa, were separated from the others and taken away. Meanwhile, in the staff residences, a group of soldiers broke into the home of Professor Hugo Muñoz Sanchez. After searching his bedroom, they gagged the professor and led him away. None of the 10 victims were ever seen again. Prosecutions and amnesty. In April 1993, a group of Peruvian military officers anonymously released a document detailing the events at La Cantuta. The document claimed the death squad had abducted the victims, tortured and murdered them, and then hurriedly buried them. Later, they claimed, after questions had been raised in Congress, that the armed forces had exhumed, incinerated, and reburied the bodies in another location. The military whistleblowers named the members of Grupo Colina involved, identified the operations chief as Major Santiago Martin Rivas, and suggested that the group operated on the orders of Vladimiro Montesinos, head of the National Intelligence Service and a close advisor to President Fujimori. On 6 May, Lt. Gen. Humberto Robles Espinosa, the Army's third highest-ranking officer, publicly denounced a number of human rights violations committed by the SIN and the armed forces, including the La Cantuta killings. He was later dismissed from duty and subjected to death threats, and finally fled the country for political asylum in Argentina. In June 1993, Justo Arrizapana Vicente, a recycler, and his friend Guillermo Catarroca, leaked a marked map to Congressman Roger Caceres Velázquez and Radio Coma's journalist Juan Yarabera Spy. Caceres then shared the map with Ricardo Uceda at the news magazine C, who published it in July of that year. Mariela Barreto, an agent of the Peruvian Army Intelligence Service, is also sometimes credited with leaking this map to a Peruvian magazine. An investigation of the site indicated on the map by the public prosecutor revealed 4 clandestine graves. Forensic tests conducted on the remains, and on another set of bones found at another site, revealed that they belonged to Munoz Sanchez and the students Luis Enrique Ortiz Perea, Armando Amaro Condor, and Juan Gabriel Marinos Figueroa, and that at least some of them had been tortured prior to receiving an execution-style coup de grace to the base of the neck. Barreto was murdered some years later. Her decapitated and dismembered corpse, showing signs of ante-mortem torture, was found in March 1997. A few weeks after Mariela Barreto's death, her colleague Leonor La Rosa was on TV in a hospital bed, declaring she had been tortured and that Barreto had been killed in retaliation for leaking information to the press about the Grupo Colina's plan to intimidate journalists and politicians from the opposition. The military authorities had begun an investigation into the killings in May 1993. In addition, in December 1993, a civilian prosecutor filed criminal charges against several named members of the military. A conflict of jurisdiction thus arose between the military and civilian courts. The controversy was placed before the Supreme Court, which, on 3 February 1994, ruled that it was unable to reach agreement on which venue should apply. Consequently, on the night of 7 February, Congress enacted a new law whereby the Supreme Court could decide such matters with a simple majority, instead of a unanimous vote. By a 3-2 vote of the Supreme Court's Criminal Division, the case was placed under military jurisdiction. On 21 February 1994, the Supreme Council of Military Justice sentenced 10 of the perpetrators to prison sentences of between 1 and 20 years. Following Fujimori's landslide re-election in April 1995, in another all-night session on 14 June 1995, Congress enacted Law No. 26,479, the Amnesty Law, ordering the release of all police officers, soldiers, and civil servants convicted of or charged with civilian or military crimes during Peru's war on terrorism. On 15 July, the Supreme Council of Military Justice ordered the release of all the individuals convicted for the La Cantuta killings. Repeal of the Amnesty Law. The Amnesty Law was repealed after the fall of the Fujimori government in 2000 and on 21 March 2001. Attorney General Nelly Calderon presented charges against Fujimori, accusing him of being one of the co-authors of this massacre and of the 1991 Barrios Altos massacre. She presented evidence that Fujimori, acting in concert with Sin Supremo Vladimiro Montesinos, exercised control over Grupo Colina. The charges alleged that the group could not have committed crimes of this magnitude without Fujimori's express orders or consent, and that the formation and function of the Colina group was part of an overall counterinsurgency policy that involved systematic violations of human rights, prosecutions and apology. In November 2005, Fujimori was detained in Chile. Peruvian authorities filed for his extradition to face charges arising from various incidents during his presidency, including the La Cantuta massacre, and he was returned to Peru on the 22nd of September 2007. He is currently on trial for his alleged role in the massacre. On 8 April 2008, a court found a number of people, including Julio Salazar, guilty of kidnapping, homicide, and forced disappearance. In October 2007, pursuant to a 2006 ruling from the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, the government extended a formal apology for the massacre and undertook to make amends to the victims' next of kin, including compensation in the amount of $1.8 million. Fujimori's trial alleged Shining Path connection. During the trial of Alberto Fujimori, it was asserted by former Colina member José William Tena Jacinto that at least 2 of the victims were positively identified as Shining Path members. Lieutenant Aquilino Portela and the Dean of the Social Science Department of the University, Claudio Cajawaringa, have also claimed that Professor Hugo Muñoz Sanchez and student Bertila Lozano Torres were involved with Shining Path. In the case of Lozano, it was claimed that documents allegedly in her possession revealed that she was indeed an actual member of the insurgent organization.